metropolitan area, which again is a focus point for the whole issue of hate, largest city in the state, in the country for that matter, that basically talks about hate and racism aspect of it. Portland, Oregon, I mean, just happen to have someone who has been very, very much involved in politics and as a businessman. I mean, imagine being committed and being able to deal with some of the major issues here in the city of Portland, in the state of Oregon for that matter, and still maintain a business relationship and still a successful business person. And I'm talking about a gentleman by the name of Fred Stewart. You're going to know a little bit more about him as he goes along with what he's going to be sharing with us today. What Fred is going to do today is that he's going to respond to an article, and like I said, we'll talk a little bit about this article. But what I'm going to do as part of that introduction of that article aspect of it, I got my sidekick here with me, Teresa DePay, Kenny DePay, a good friend of mine's wife. She's an editor and a writer in her own rights aspect of it, and she also got involved, and in fact, she was part of the editing of the introduction to a certain degree of the article. And I thought it's fantastic. So I'm going to give Teresa the opportunity to just do a little brief overview of what you thought about that article. You wrote that article, and
Well, the article I pretty much edited. Fred sent me his statement, and it had the bare bones and the facts, names, and certain details, and I just fleshed those out and created an article where he could make his statement about what happened September 5th, which was just a few days ago, when he bumped into a particular editor of a particular newspaper, Willamette Week.
Yes. And I might add too that Teresa is also a co-host here at the Oregon Voters Digest, and she's very, very much involved in community, like her husband is also too, former Portland policeman who's also ran for sheriff for Multnomah County here in the Portland metropolitan area. So we're very, very much involved in a whole bunch of things. So this is not just a fluke, folks. This is a very serious issue. But again, we're trying to get to a point where we can in fact assimilate, if you will. We've got problems assimilating, and here we are in the 20th century, and we're still having a problem with an issue that's major, major, major stuff. And so that's one of the reasons why we're getting ready to do this show. And I really think this really opens the door to really having a serious discussion on assimilation, on solving some of the problems, because we can't continue to do this in this country, for that matter. But we're fortunate to have the situation being brought to the table to a person who has been actively involved in community, a business person, been basically raised right here in the city of Portland, but he knows Oregon. He's very much involved with all kinds of things. Excuse me, French. He's not a hater or a racist. He's just a committed person for community and just a committed person, very independent minded, and that's what we need. Fred, that's you. So why don't you just go take it from there, Fred, and tell us about the issue that we're talking about.
Well,
the article.
First off, the article, you can go to my website, fredstewart.com, and it's the last posting on there, so it's going to be easy to find.
So fredstewart.com.
Fredstewart.com is where it's located at. It's about an interaction I had with editor, basically the guy who's running Willamette Week, Mark Zusman. Now, I've known Mark for many years, and we've had a cordial relationship. I mean, I would say we're friends, but we've never been anywhere near drinking buddies. No, never hung out with each other. Or you can say, if you can consider community work professional, more professional relationship than anything else. See each other, say hi. He has questions, he'll call. I have suggestions, I'd call over the years, whatever. Last year when I ran for Portland City Council, I faced a lot of racism, not just from Willamette Week, but from City Club and a few other places. And I've been thinking I should say something because I think more black people should run. And I know a lot of black people have the interest to run, but they're worried about that theater of racism. That's a completely different theater of racism than the theater that we deal with normally. And it's intimidating to a lot of, I think, very highly qualified black people. And so I decided to write this article because I'm hoping to, believe it or not, encourage more minority people, more people of color, more minorities in general, to go ahead and go into that theater and run. I myself haven't decided if I'm going to run this next time or not for city council, but regardless whether I run or not, I think it's what this is. Our process is one of those things. Is the more people that engage, the better we all are. So first off, before we get into anything, if you're a minority, black, brown skin, gay, whatever. Don't be afraid of public service. Don't be afraid of people like Mark Zusman and Nigel Jayquees and other very bad influences in Portland that we have out here in our journalism community. Our journalism community, in my opinion, is one of the biggest encumbrances we have to us being more progressive than we actually are.
Yeah.
We tend to vote for people in our community that aren't as progressive as the voting base is. And I blame a lot of that on our journalist community. They're very bigoted as a community. They're very racist. They're not as homophobic as they used to be, but I still think that it's still there. And I just want to call attention to people about that our journalism community isn't. There's no watchdog on them.
Right.
You can be as racist as you want to be. You could be a David Duker, let alone a Donald Trump. And there's really no checks and balances to make sure that the person that you're reading, the person's providing you the information they feel is important for you to, and the way that they feel is important is a credible person for you to pay attention to. You don't have the tools because in general, the journalism community does not tattletale on each other. They'll tattletale on politicians they don't like. They'll tattletale on politicians that are advocating things they don't like. But they don't tattletale on each other at all unless, it's a very, very weird or rare circumstance. So I come across, I'm at the a club one day last Monday on the 5th, just working out, and I come across Mark Zusman. I didn't even recognize him. I haven't seen Mark in probably over a year. His hair's a lot whiter than it was the last time I saw him, and I just didn't recognize him. I was walking by him, and Mark called me over. He's seen some things on my Facebook. He's heard about some of the positive steps I've taken to help make changes in our journalism community, but what he was concerned about was me labeling him and his organization as a racist organization. Now, friends, I want you to understand something about Willamette Week. Willamette Week has hired next to no black people in the last 30 years, at least. Depending on who you talk to, they've hired one or two. And the ones that they have hired, the people who do come up with different names, they're usually in things like, jazz or whatever, the music.
Fluff.
You call it fluff is important, but they don't get into the culture of Portland, the society. They're not staff writers that write about the politics or the news of the day in Oregon. They generally don't do that with black people at all, and they're not alone. Oregonians the same way, and so is the Tribune. But Willamette Week is most particular in that Willamette Week has a long history of basically insulting or belittling the contributions of black leaders in the city of Portland. People like Lou Frederick, Rudy Artree, Derek Foxworth. They ignore contributions people like Sam Brooks have made, and Carl Talton. And, there's a long list, guys. It would literally take the whole show for me to list all of the incredible black people we've got in Portland that have contributed to Portland. And because of that, a lot of white Portland has got a skewed understanding of what's really going on when it comes to race, when it comes to racism, when it comes to Portland, Oregon, their city, especially the people who are just moving here. And, last year when the Willamette Week wrote that article about my daughter and I, my daughter and I don't get along. My daughter is a teenager. My family and I, we demand a certain level of respect. My daughter doesn't want to give it. So we don't see eye to eye. And I'm sure I'm not the only father or only family has to deal with stuff like that. But, they insinuated that I'm abusive, that I beat my daughter, that I beat my ex-wife. And people that know me, people who've done business with me, people who've grown up with me, people who are in my family, they all know this is a lie. And they all know that it's wrong. But these guys on basically one source of information, my daughter, and maybe my ex-wife, which my family and I would consider to be the same one, they decided to write this article and basically saying that I'm a black guy that goes around and beating women. Not understanding, when you're dealing with a black candidate, especially if somebody who's been around a long time like me, you want to be fair. And to be fair, you want to investigate, do a thorough investigation to make sure these accusations are true. If these accusations are true, I honestly believe the newspaper should report it. You run for office and you commit a crime, you beat people up, the media should talk about it. The media should inform the public about it. But they shouldn't lie. And Willamette Week lied. And I've been thinking of what I can do to prevent this from happening in the future. And that's what Mark was talking about when he came and approached me. The steps that I'm beginning to take, the unique skills that I've got and relationships that I've got in this town that allow me to do things that maybe a lot of other people wouldn't be able to do, or wouldn't be, they'd hesitate to do, that I'm not hesitating to do. Because I want the next cycle of politics that we're in right now to be different. I don't want racism part of it. I don't think I'm going to be able to destroy it on my own, or the people working with me, we're going to be able to destroy it on our own. But I want to get us on a path to where there's more fairness in the way politics are performed here in this town. Now, keep in mind, there is no fairness doctrine in politics. Politics by nature is not a fair atmosphere. But, we do have to do something to allow more people who are not your normal political candidates, especially when they're not white, to feel comfortable with jumping in and contributing to the process. And that's where these guys like Mark Zusman get in the way. Mark Zusman, Nigel Jaquise, and everybody in the Oregonian editorial board, everybody on the Portland Tribune editorial board, they are basically the great wall of advancement for the people of Portland when it comes to politics. They generally only support white candidates locally. They generally are only interested in issues that are what they consider important to white people. They do not feel the public, no matter how much marching white Portland does for equality, for women's rights, against racism, they generally, when it comes to the political candidates that they endorse, they generally aren't interested in political candidates or interested in any of that. Period. The questions they ask us, the interview process, everything is pretty monolithically white. I'll give you a perfect example. Last year, when I ran for office, we had one of the worst years for black-on-black crimes that we've had in close to 30 years. We've got a growing gap in unemployment between black and white people, especially our younger people in this town. And we've got what a lot of people are calling as black flight out of Portland. Black people are being either pushed out of Portland or choosing to leave Portland. Not one editor, not one newspaper asked me about any of that. Here you got a black candidate who grew up in Portland, knows a lot of people, black and white, that weren't even interested in it. None of them were interested in talking about solutions to our gang problem and our violence problem in general. If an issue such as gun control came up, it came up only in basically the normal national ways that we hear it, not in a way that affects the average person in Portland. That's just how they are. And most of it is because I did not meet one black writer or editor in 2016 during my campaign. Even when I sat down with the Scanner newspaper, which is a Scanner news group, they had pretty much a 50-50 mix between black writers and white writers.
This is a black newspaper.
This is a black newspaper. So they had, pretty much when I was sitting there with Brittany Foster and his people, I'm there with women, men, gay, straight, a pretty interracial, integrated, multi-everything. And the questions they asked were pretty much more Portland. When I say Portland, more what I heard going on the campaign trail coming from your average citizen than I heard from the Oregonian, Willamette Week, or Portland Mercury, or Portland Tribune. None of those guys really encompassed what your average citizen in Portland was talking to me and other candidates about. And that's where the problem with racism, I think, comes in. So, I look at what Mark Zusman did to me. I look at what he did with Lou Frederick. Lou Frederick's an incredible guy.
Right. Yep.
Lou Frederick, when I was a kid, those of you who were here back in 1979-80, when Lou Frederick hit town, old black Portland, they made a lot of us young guys like me watch Channel 8 to see Lou Frederick, because the old folks liked the way he talked, and they wanted him. They considered him a good example for young black people like me and younger to follow. You know, they were really impressed with Lou, and you know, Lou. If you get to learn about Lou and his family, it's an incredible story. The man's done a whole lot, and he's chosen. Lou Frederick was the type of guy who would be successful in any market he decided to move into, but he chose Portland, and he's done very good for us. And right now, in my opinion, he's the best person of color state representative we've ever had. We haven't had very many, and he's, you know, just blowing it up right now. And you know, Broody Archery, another guy. There was no counterpart to Broody Archery before him. Before there was a Broody Archery, no black person did as much in Oregon government than he has. Nobody. There is nobody to compare him to. There is Broody, and then everybody coming afterwards. And in 2000, what was it? 2009? No, 2013. He complimented Loretta Smith on being attractive. A woman that he's known for 20 years. I've heard that they've dated at one time. I don't know if they did or not. It's none of my business. But I do know they're good friends and have known each other for a long time. And he basically said she was good looking. Now, Loretta Smith is a black woman. We got a lot of issues in Oregon and other places around the country. A lot of black women not feeling as appreciated as a lot of white women because of the way our advertising is and other factors. So here's a black man in public in front of a bunch of people telling a beautiful black woman who Loretta is, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful. And he ended up losing his job over it. And I think that was motivated by the incredibly just sick and perverted articles, tainted articles written by Willamette Week and
Yes.
Oregonian.
Yes.
Because Nick Fish compliments, who's the city commissioner, Loretta Smith all the time on her good looks. And I don't think...
And he's black, isn't he?
No, Nick Fish is a white man. And Nick Fish, I hope wherever you're at, Nick, I hope you're doing well with your I know you're fighting cancer right now, and I hope you're doing well. But Nick, you know, is just a gentleman. Nick Fish, I don't think anybody knows Nick doesn't consider Nick Fish a gentleman. He compliments her probably like he compliments a lot of women, and the paper feels that's totally okay for Nick Fish to go around and say, "Hey, you look good today," you know. But you can't do that if you're a black man. You lose your reputation, you lose your life, and that's spearheaded, guys. Not so much by the politics or the politicians. That's spearheaded by our newspapers, our editors, people like Mark Zusman and the people that are on the Oregonian and so forth. They're the ones that are spearheading this and make this a thing.
I want to make a statement, though, about Willamette Week. I think what's important to understand also about Willamette Week is that more so than the Oregonian and the Portland Tribune, Willamette Week focuses on sex scandals. It's Nigel Jacques's favorite kind of preoccupation.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to put him down in terms of his skills as a journalist. He's an excellent journalist when he wants to be. His articles that he wrote about, you know, Neil Goldschmidt and the girl Elizabeth Dunham were wonderful. That was a wonderful thing. But he focuses on sex scandals, and Willamette Week has that reputation. And it's tawdry and it's unfair, and a lot of times they don't do the research that they should, and they don't have enough sources, and their information is not accurate. They accused you of being arrested for non-payment of child support in that article last year, and that was not true. So
yeah, they retracted that.
Yeah, they had to retract it.
They had to retract it. But
Yeah.
what fascinates me is they didn't even take the time to verify it.
Yeah, right.
You know, I don't know
Right.
where that one came out. I don't
Right.
know. And that's one of the things I don't think my daughter would have made up. But
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah.
You never know where stuff like that, you know, where, like that comes from. But you know, and then Derek Foxworth, you know, I that was the first time, friends, I really thought I needed to step out and say something about racism in journalism, because you know Derek Foxworth is a good man, good cop, and I hated the way the Willamette Week and the Oregonian treated him.
Yeah.
He was chief of police.
He
at
was
the
chief
time.
of police
Chief of police.
in
Portland,
2006.
Oregon.
He had a relationship with a white woman, I think up until about 2000, 1999 or 2000. They were both single. And single people choose to hook up sometimes. Occasionally. I know people who have done that, and you know, and they stopped hooking up, and then their lives went on in different directions. She never accused him of doing anything wrong. She never accused Derek Foxworth of sexual harassing her. She accused the Portland Police Department of sexual harassing her because white guys in the police department who couldn't date her were making fun of her for having sex with a black man. So she sued. She let the city of Portland know that she was considering suing the city on sexual harassment, not from anything that she was accusing Derek Foxworth. She never accused him of committing any infraction against her, because everything that happened between her and him was consensual. She was going after the people who were making fun of her, basically racist white guys who were making fun of her.
And she was a staffer of the Portland Police Department.
She was a staffer of the city of Portland, assigned to the Portland Police Department.
Well,
So she was
a staffer.
She was a staffer. But the thing is, the reason why I was offended by how the Oregonian and the Willamette Week treated her is we have sexual misconduct. I mean, there were things that even Tom Potter did when he was a cop. I'm sure people, and I'm sure Mark and those guys knew about it, would consider was sexually inappropriate. It's none of my business. But what I'm saying is, and I'm not judging Tom Potter, nobody ever accused him of a crime or anything like that. Not to my knowledge. Nobody ever did. I never heard anything like that. But what I'm trying to say is, the way they characterize Derek Foxworth is like this guy is some sort of either a lovesick puppy or some pervert.
Right.
And they basically presented him in the most negative fashion they could when he's not even being accused of anything.
Right.
I mean, it's not like this woman saying he raped me or he
Right.
did. She's not even saying that Derek did anything to her. She's saying these white guys that work for the city, that have badges, they are making fun of me for having sex with a black man. Well, those white guys didn't lose their jobs. They didn't. Derek Foxworth did.
Right.
And they did mostly because of the relentless mischaracterization that Mark Zusman and the Willamette Week and the Oregonian did against a black man,
Right.
who, when the investigation was completed, the people who the city of Portland paid to investigate him said that not only did he not do anything wrong, he was a complete gentleman and a perfect public servant in cooperating with the investigation fully, and they basically dared this woman to sue the city. I mean, if you read the report, they're basically telling this woman, bring it on. You think, Derek or the city of Portland's done something wrong? Bring it on. I mean, let's sue us. Not oftentimes does a black man get accused of sexual misconduct with a white woman do we get exonerated. In my lifetime, let alone the lifetime of people older than me, black guys have lost their jobs, let alone their careers over stuff like that.
Their lives.
Their lives.
Their lives.
They've lost their lives totally, lost everything over mischaracterizations, assassinations like that.
Yeah.
And so I looked at, how Willamette Week treats, and there's other instances. People, I don't have time on this show to talk about all the negative things they've done to Black Portland, and it's not just Willamette Week. Willamette Week's in one on point right now. Oregonian does too. And it goes all the way into the newsroom. That's what I want my friends and family out there to understand. They don't even hire black people. I live in a town where I got white people trying to move into neighborhoods that have a mixed group of people, black, white, different religions and everything. I know business people who are trying to push their companies forward and be more inclusive. I'm in real estate. I hear from this all the time. But I don't see it reflected in the people who run our government, and I don't see it reflected in the people who are in our journalism community. It is a absolute white person's deal. And they keep doing things in a way in which that perpetuates that. And one of those things that perpetuates that is it intimidates people of color and other minorities from running. Now, a few of us have run. I've run. But as good as I think I would be for the city on city council, and friends, I think I would be good for the city on Portland City Council, I don't think I'm the absolutely only one that would be good. I think there are others out there that would be great assets to our city that happen to not be white. The problem is if you're black and you got a lot to contribute, you've got to just understand that you're dealing with a bunch of, Steve Bannons and David Duke wannabes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just saying, "Come on down, black boy, black girl. I'm ready for you." Got the noose in the back. My noose, though, is in print. I'm not going to use an actual rope.
Right.
My noose is in print.
Right.
I'm going to talk about your family, your grandfather, great-grandfather. I'm going to talk about any infraction that I can find that will intimidate white people to not want to vote for you. And I'm not being racist by doing it. I think, Mark Zusman and all these guys don't think so. They don't think they're being racist.
Sad. They
and that's what's sad about it. They don't think it's racist at all.
Yeah.
And, Mark Zusman, when I was talking with him, he asked me to give him examples of him or his newspaper being racist. Evidence. Yeah. What's evidence? And I gave him some of the same evidence I just given you. And he basically said we have to agree to disagree. And the thing that caught me when he said that was, you're requiring me to use a higher level of evidence to prove that you're racist than you used in the article you wrote about me to prove that I beat on women. I mean, he basically just told me right there how he felt about not just me as a person like Fred Stewart, but me as a black person. Because he is a person with Jewish heritage, I think, would see that imbalance, would see that contradiction. Because, trust me, people, he's older than me. I think Mark's a good 10, 15 years older than me. Mark has faced some discrimination on his own, and he's heard about it from his parents and his grandparents, and he's witnessed it. He's not a dumb man. He knows what discrimination is all about. He knows how destructive it is. He understands the covert and overt racism. That's why, like I told Mark, and I did say this to Mark, even though I don't think he's a David Duke type of racist, this is why I think his racism is intentional. Because I think a guy like him would know. He knows what discrimination is all about and how it can affect people. And he understands the damage he does.
Why would he know that?
Because, our Jewish cousins and stuff, they have faced a lot. Just in our lifetime.
That's true.
And though they don't face it like me, Mark, when he walks into a room, he's a white guy.
See, that's
you
the
understand?
thing. That's the thing.
But
he's still a white man.
I guarantee you in his life, he's been in a room and a bunch of people figured out, oh my God, that's a Jew.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Probably in the early 70s.
Probably in the 70s or when he was in high school or college.
Right.
And he has faced that same thing that I'm facing with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? He has had what he did to me, though mine was, citywide. Yeah. But in general, he's had those same things done where people have treated him differently in a negative way because of his religion, because of his heritage. And, that's what disappoints me so much, not just in Mark, but in myself, because I told Mark, I said, Mark, I've felt this way with you for a long time, and it took what you did to me with my daughter to get me to feel like I needed to say something.
We should clarify that. Last year, in 2016, Willamette Week wrote an article. Mm-hmm. Fred Stewart pinned his 16-year-old daughter against the wall, and then he sued her. That was the title of the article, and that's classic yellow journalism.
Classic.
It's sensationalism. It's inaccurate, and they used her as a source and maybe her mother a little bit, and that was it. They didn't interview. They may have accessed some police records, but they didn't interview the police officer that came. Well,
they accessed the police records. The police records said I never did anything.
Right.
The DA. I've been investigating.
And the thing about that article that's important is Willamette Week. This includes Mark Zusman and Nigel Jaquess, because Nigel Jaquess is the golden egg at Willamette Week. He's probably more important than Zusman, really. These are the two head guys. They make the decisions. Jaquess probably has as much power as Zusman does. They were more than willing to come between a father and a daughter and basically use that girl, 19 years old, young, naive, very inexperienced, angry at her dad, angsty teenager like I was angsty when I was 19. They're willing to come between a father and a daughter and destroy that relationship and traumatize your mother, Dorothy, and other family members to the point where now your daughter doesn't have any black family members that support her, that want contact with her. She's completely isolated herself. And I'm sure she's still, to a degree, that angsty kid. And she's going to blame daddy for everything. And he didn't do this for me and he didn't do that for me, blah, blah, blah. In 5 or 10 years, she's going to look back and she's going to see how she was used. And to me, that's what's so outrageous about this situation. And, we talked the day that you ran into him, September 5th, and we talked for a while. And I remember you saying how he mocked you and basically rubbed it in your face that she sure seemed happy when I told her we were going to run the story. That's what he said.
What happened?
That's reprehensible.
I told him that my daughter has no connection with her black family, and we had a pretty large family nationwide. And there's a lot of things about my family she just doesn't know because there was no communication whatsoever. My mother is the one that hurts me the most because this is my mother's and my father's only grandchild, and there's a lot. I think as a young black woman, my daughter needs to learn, needs to get that she can only get from a woman like my mother.
Yeah.
And my mother's raised 3 kids, for the most part on her own. And we're all professionals in one way or the other. None of us are criminals, unless it's my daughter or my ex-wife. None of us are accused of being physically abusive to anybody or anything like that. My mother is somebody that I really wish my daughter would know more about. But what I'm getting to, guys, is this is the vision as a black father I got. My daughter wanted to be a journalist, and she went to college to try to become a journalist. And to have a double Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Mark Zusman, reach out to her. I mean, the power of manipulation is so overwhelming. I mean, and
also, we should also point out the fact that Nigel Jacquess did lie to you.
Yes.
Now, I wrote the article last year after they did their hatchet job on you, and we talked, and you told me he lied to me. And I asked you, I said, what did he tell you? Did he tell you he was going to do the story? And you said, no. He said, I'm not going to do a story on you. So number one, Nigel Jacquess lied. Nigel Jacquess is like everyone else. He is capable of lying. So he's not this knight on a white horse. He's not perfect.
Yeah, how he did it is he said, Fred, what we do? We do background checks on everybody who runs for office. And he says, I got some questions for you I want to ask you about your background. And we covered a lot of things. I mean, he definitely did a thorough background check on me. And that's one of the things that scares people who want to run for office. But I tell people, look, nobody who's ever run for office is perfect, except Barack Obama. Nobody's ever run for office is perfect except Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you got to. Sometimes it's your imperfections that's going to make you the biggest asset to the people that vote for you.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, when it came to me, he didn't tell me what he was going to write about. He told me actually he wasn't going to write about anything. He told me, he says, hey, I'm just here to clarify some stuff. And I was truthful with him, which I think everybody who's in public should be truthful. Right. I do believe in the freedom of the press. I do believe that politicians owe it to the press to be upfront with them and be truthful. I don't believe in liars. And so I told him the truth about everything. And I also assumed that he's going to double check everything. And that's how everything pretty much ended.
And I remember we talked earlier, because before the story came out, we talked on Facebook or something. You asked me about him.
Yeah.
And I told you, oh God, don't talk to this guy. He's not trustworthy.
Yep.
He's a snake in the grass. He will use whatever he has, whatever means he has available to him to get the story out, whether it's accurate or not. He loves to ruin people. And when I did my research on him, I found an article. He was making a speech at some university, and he said that, journalism was better than sex. He made some comment about how it was basically better than sex. And that's the power and the control that he experiences, that he gets off on when he writes those, as Ron Buell called them, those gotcha stories. And that's what's really tragic about what's happened. But yeah, he exposed himself as a dishonest person.
Well, look here. Let's giving you the opportunity to share your thoughts and feelings about what has just transpired. But let's go back to the whole issue of journalism,
Okay.
and how it's been reflected today. And in all due respect, I'm very familiar with the Willamette Week. It's a freebie. It's not a paid subscription kind of
Right.
a situation. And when you start thinking about pushing newsprint and selling newsprint, you got to have yellow journalism. You got to have sex. You got to have race. You got to have black. And when you and you know, black, as one would say, black elected officials, if there's such an animal or a person out there, that's a very positive kind of situation. They don't appear in those kinds of papers. You know, they got to have something that people will pick it up from. And it's a sad note, and you know, it's a sad note that's the way it is. But that's one paper. Then you've got, and you think about, and it's not a large paper. It's not a statewide publication. It's a local publication. And it really
Some people call it a rag.
It is a rag, but the bottom line is it does focus to a certain base of folks.
Yeah.
And those people do vote. And when they put out the IE, these are the ones we've endorsed, if you will. Those that source, if you will go towards that.
Well, yeah,
base.
but you also got to remember, Willamette Week is there's not a lot of difference when it comes to racism and stuff and the gotcha stuff between them and the Oregonian.
Well, I mean, maybe not as much.
I
I mean,
mean,
they're not into don't get me wrong, the sex thing. Again, the Oregonian is a statewide newspaper. It's a different. They
Yeah.
got subscribers. You know, I used to own the paper at one point in time.
And another
Different
another important point to make is the death of the print newspaper. That's what
Yeah.
basically the crux of this whole issue is the
Yeah.
Oregonian and the Willamette Week. They're dying.
Yeah.
The print newspaper is dying, so they're resorting to sensationalistic techniques, yellow journalism, stories like the story they wrote about you.
Well, the thing is, when I look at it, there's so many great things going on in Portland, right? In Oregon in general, not just with black people, but in general. You know, if the newspapers brought real news to people consistently,
Yeah.
were more diverse in the type of writers they've got, was more diverse in the discussions that they try to provoke. Their readership would actually be increasing because
Yeah.
what I've learned just through my Facebook is there is a need for people to continuously learn through discovery of what other people are thinking.
Well, that's a whole different market.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's
I
social
understand.
media. That's a whole different
I know,
ballgame.
but I'm just saying they can be integrated more into social media and make money. They can integrate both the print and the social media. There are newspapers that are doing it around the country.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they choose not to. And then when it comes to people of color and people who are not just, let's say, your average white person, you understand, running, if there is any such thing as an average white person. But what I'm trying to say is, they do a very good job of intimidating people to not contribute. I mean, Bruce, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I look at how people have treated you over the years. You know, you're in that list too of how the Oregonian and the Willamette Week ignore you,
Right.
and when they do write about you, they don't say all the positive things about you. I mean, you're one
Right.
of the few black people who have interviewed maybe 5,000 everybody. I mean, you've interviewed and
Charlie
interacted.
Hales.
I mean. Living and dead. You know what I'm talking about? I mean,
right.
you are a trove of history, right? They don't honor that at all.
Right.
They don't find any value in that, you know, at all. Now, if you were white, and there's nobody white like you in Oregon, but I guarantee you if you're white, they would have a different take on you.
I agree.
You understand?
I agree.
They would have 100% different take on you. I think one of the reasons why those white guys at Oregonian, those white guys one of the things I did, I'm not going to get too deep into this. I was upset with the Willamette Week and the Oregonian last year. I was upset with Nigel. I was upset with Steve. So I did something that any black person I think that makes good money in this town would do, is I paid some very, very, very skilled and smart people to let me learn about everybody in their family, about them, what they do, who they hang out with, who's having, you know, affairs, everything.
Right.
They may not believe this, but the people that know me, they know it's true. I just want to know what kind of guy Mark Zusman was, because I only knew him from a professional standpoint. I want to know, does Nigel have arguments with his daughter? His daughter is about the same age as my daughter, you know, and stuff like that.
And what happened?
Well, let's just say I learned a lot about the journalists in our
why
community.
didn't you print it and publish it and sell
Well,
it?
they're scared.
I haven't decided what I'm
going to
I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with all this. I'm still
You
collecting.
got that information?
I got it. I'm still collecting
Well,
it.
give it to me. We'll have a
It's
discussion.
become a passion source, because one of the things I wanted to know, just from an intellectual standpoint, are these good people?
Right.
You know, are these the type of people I would listen to if they posted on my Facebook, or if we're sitting at a bar? You understand what I'm talking about? I mean, one of the things that scares me, guys, is in 1991 when Tom Metzger lost that lawsuit for being sued by the Southern Poverty Leadership
Southern Poverty Law
Center here in Portland for the killing, the skinheads killing the young Ethiopian man in 1980. Okay. Yeah. One of the things he promised white Portland, because he was so mad at white Portland, he said white people in Portland didn't know how to be white, and he was going to teach white people in Portland how to be white. And how he was going to do it was he was telling the skinheads to grow your hair out longer, stop getting tattoos, get jobs,
integrate,
right. Get jobs in journalism, get jobs in government, run for office. He said that down at the Federal Building in 1991, and that's always stuck in the back of my head. So
the question is, who can you trust?
Who can you trust? Who on the? I mean, we don't know the backgrounds of the people who bring us our news, because they don't report on each other. We had Joel Iwanagwa. What's the name of the guy from Channel 6 that was shoplifting?
Oh, yeah.
That was busted shoplifting.
Right.
I liked him, but he shoplifted, and they didn't say nothing until he was convicted. You know what I mean? It was like a 4 or 5 month period of time difference. You know what I mean? Now, if it had been me running for office, or any black person in office, anybody in office, they would have reported that
2 days later.
But Joel worked. He actually did a story a week before he quit. And he only quit because he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor. You understand? And I like Joel. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but that gives you an idea. And I learned a lot, and I've committed myself, whether I run for office or not, that I'm always going to learn a lot and know a lot about the people in our journalism community. I want to know about them. I want to know about their wives, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, who they have affairs with, their education background.
Well, you should publish it.
You know,
that's journalism.
Put like this.
But it's factual.
I'm in the phase.
Wait a minute. Oh, that's factual.
It's factual. Right? I'm in the phase where some of the stuff I want to verify, I got to learn what to do.
You hired someone to do it.
I hired people, and they were very good.
What would be interesting, perhaps, is to create a website. That has all the journalists in Oregon and Portland listed with some basic information on their family background and that kind of thing, like an index.
Like an index.
Yeah, but at the same time, let's put it this way. Now we got about 15 minutes more. We've been talking about the Willamette Week for quite some time. We've been talking about Mark. You know what I mean? He's in business.
I would say Mark's not a good person.
No,
okay,
he's not.
but he's in business.
He's mean-spirited.
He's the Willamette Week aspect of it.
And he's a racist.
I think it would be an opportunity here, is a fair opportunity to invite Mark to come here on the Oregon Voters Digest.
It would be great to have Mark
let him respond, if you will, over and beyond. What is his newspaper? You know, what's the intent of his newspaper? What are the benefits of Portland?
You know, to be fair to Mark,
wait a minute. What is his contribution, if you will, to the wellness and the livability of our city? Because he should be a responsible.
You know, to be a fair one, you should invite him. I shouldn't be on that show. It should just be you and Mark.
Well, just like we're doing it now.
Yeah,
no problem.
Just do it right now.
Then afterwards, maybe we'll get together.
Yeah.
And I can predict what will happen. Mark would never be on this show because he wouldn't be able to handle being in the hot seat.
No. Let's see. I'm gonna challenge him on that piece aspect of it. All due respect, Mark, please come on down to the Oregon Voters Digest, and we'll talk about the news. Because all due respect,
and Nigel too.
Because journalism, as a rule, right now is in the dumps. They have no credibility across the country, in the world, just like our so-called elected Congress.
And they are all right now looking forward to March and April when they're going to be their biggest newspapers during the year tend to be their endorsements of candidates.
Right.
Wow.
So, I mean, this always makes me laugh about these guys, and especially as I learn more and more about more and more about them. You know, if you've got a bias against a particular group of people, and nobody's ever going to know, right? Who's to say that you're not going to endorse other candidates who have that same bias? I mean, there is no way to rectify for the public that their editor, we're all assuming that the journalists that we read in the major newspapers are level-headed, good people.
Right.
Just like when we go to the doctor, we consider that nobody thinks the doctor may be racist or
Right.
may not like somebody because they're gay. I'm hurt. I want, you go to a professional and you figure as a professional they're going to give you the best care possible.
But Fred, but at the same time, and again, in journalism aspect of it, you do have an opportunity. Because I couldn't refuse an ad when I was the publisher of the Observer. If I did a quote out there in an article or whatever that was written aspect of it. So if you got the money, you can do a full page ad, and he won't say no.
Yeah.
No one will say no in the business.
I'm sure if I
would-
wanted to do a full ad in Willamette Week and Oregonian, they would take my money, but
And it would be really expensive.
and that-
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
But my
and I
point
don't
is-
think they would charge me
but
more than
that-
anybody else.
But
But
the point I'm making is that shouldn't be the fact. You should not have had to react to something that they're supposed to have had the facts to begin with.
Yeah.
As opposed, see what I'm saying? You're responding to the facts.
well, that's
So-
why I did what I did. I said, you know what? It's interesting. They did a background check on me and checked and then they're going to do a paper and tell the public whether or not the candidate is a good person, let alone should they be elected.
Yeah.
You understand? And I'm like, but who's doing that to the journalist?
Right.
You understand?
Well, that's right.
I could
We
be,
need a
I-
watchdog.
as a black person, I could be sitting across a guy who thinks
Right.
David Duke is the second coming.
Right, right.
As far as I know.
But like I said,
I would like to
Real
say
quick.
one thing. Okay. I've been on the show for the last a little over 2 years,
Yeah.
and sometimes I guest host, and it's only been about around that time that I really started learning about racism.
Yeah.
I'm a white person, so I'm very white, lighting up this room. One thing I've learned is people who say, I am not a racist. I will have to agree to disagree, Fred. That kind of absolute refusal to acknowledge institutionalized racism is wrong. I've thought, felt, and done some things that that are racist because I was raised in a certain way, even though my parents were enlightened and we were never allowed to use foul language when describing people of color. But the fact that Mark Zusman would so adamantly deny that he or his organization is in any way racist is an indicator that he's in complete denial about the realities of institutionalized racism.
Well, the thing is, you're right, but he's either in complete denial, or you can also look at it, if you don't give him the best benefit of the doubt, say that he accepts it and feels it's okay. You understand? I mean, I don't know enough about Mark yet, and trust me, I'm trying to learn as much as I can to say it where he's 100% at on either way.
Well, the thing about Willamette Week is the tone of their rag is mocking, and let's get those gotcha stories out there, those sex scandals, those titillating stories that are exciting, that get readers. But they like to poke fun at people, and what they did to Lou Frederick and Lou Frederick's family is an indicator. Lou Frederick's great-grandfather was born a slave. What did they do in that article? They pointed out that they said his fly was undone. Number one, it was a small portion of the top. They would rather poke fun at this former slave's fly being a little undone than, like Fred said, the wonderful contribution that this man made, making sure that his children and grandchildren were all college educated. That's what they should have been focusing on instead of his fly being open. That's the tone of
And
the
you see, and I
paper.
brought this up with Mark. I know there has to be a story out there
Yeah,
of Holocaust survivors.
right.
I mean, a guy I know, his father and mother survived. His mother didn't go to a death camp, but she was over in Europe. His father survived the Holocaust. He was actually in a camp.
Yeah.
They moved to America. 10 years after the Holocaust, he's in America. He has a career. He has children. You understand? He raises those children to be, college educated and contribution to the public.
Yeah.
Had a grandson that came close to going to the Olympics. But what I'm getting to is you say, guy, you just went through hell.
Right.
Your wife basically went through hell too, not as much as you. You come to this country and you build this family.
Right.
You build this success.
This good thing.
This
Yeah.
good thing. And mean to tell me you would make fun of maybe he has a button undone in a picture, or, talking about maybe his hat's tilted the wrong way. You know what I mean? You're gonna make fun of a guy like that.
Shallow.
You know,
It's very shallow.
You're not gonna look at the immensity of his contribution.
But you can get away with that if it's a black person.
Right.
You can't get away with that with a person who has, in all due respect, has white skin, so to speak. Because in all due respect, like you said, Jewish are looked at a point as they are white. When they walk into a room, you know, people are still calling everybody niggers.
Yep.
What about them niggas over there? What about that Fred nigga over there? Blah, blah, blah. You didn't do something like this, Mark.
Well, they still use that word sometimes when I walk in the room.
Well, but sometimes, Fred, you got that jarhead hat on. If you didn't have jarhead, that'd be a different ballgame. But I guess the point is that that's one of the reasons why the Oregon Voters Digest is doing this. We need to talk about this more. This is a good discussion. I think this is something that's well worth it. And it's not just Mark, it's the rest of journalism, too, across the board. And it's not just the newspaper, it's also the video aspect of it, TV news. And this You don't see them anymore on the tube, if you will. They're not interviewing anybody. Look, you know, who am I thinking about? I'm thinking about Ken Body aspect of it.
He's on at night, on the weekends.
No, but my point is that he's not there anymore. He's not an anchor anymore. He's just there just to be black, just to show it. And so there's a lot of things that are happening right now. But I just want to make it a point to the fact that the Voters Digest we're spending the time on this purposely because we need to do this. But it's not just Mark, but we would like to have Mark come on. Because
get the other editors.
Because in all due respect, because he happens to be Jewish. I think it would be good to get his comments in terms of the things that you shared with the public here openly. You got me? Because the Jewish community, they're still having their problems today too.
Right.
Big time.
Right.
Got me?
I agree. That's why I'm surprised at a guy like him.
Oh, this is.
I mean, because like I said, it's not like.
But maybe.
But
my
I'm
point is that,
I'm not surprised.
But the idea is give him the opportunity. He may just make the point of, hey, look, this is business. You know, I'm doing yellow journalism to sell ads.
Right.
That's my job. Okay. So now, if you want to give me the deal or something like that, that's a different ball. You want to write an article, you can go on and do it. But this is what's going to cost you to take a full page. Now, if he comes out that way, then the sensitivity deal, that's another issue. But he also needs to be educated. But the rest of them too. I just don't want to just focus just on the Mark routine. I want to talk about media across the board.
Now, friends,
and the other thing let me make another good point, and that is that. Yeah, we are getting to election time. We've got some folks that are wanting to run for office. We got some serious issues here within the city. The gentrification issue aspect of it. We got homeless issue aspect
housing.
Of it. We got housing. We got a whole bunch of things, and we got folks that have that background. I'm not looking just for the fluff of people just running because they look good or they got some. No, that's BS. And in fact, I plan to run. I'm planning on running on city.
I haven't ruled it out.
No, but if you're not running yet, so
but I haven't ruled it out.
I'm running for county. Wait, I'm running for county commissioner.
Oh, really?
Right? I'm going to
Which
run
one?
for county. One that Loretta Smith is going to be leaving that particular seat.
Well, congratulations.
And as far as I'm concerned, and the way I'm going to run is going to be very simple. Whoever runs, I'm going to say, put your resume out. Show me what you've done. Because that's what we need now. We need some good, strong leaders at this point in time. Folks that will take the lead. So anyway, I'm going to be running.
Congratulations, Mark.
I think
you really should run.
I'm not personally filed yet, but I'm running.
Well, nobody is filed. There's people who are you're getting ready to run.
I know you're running, and you should feel comfortable in saying that you're running.
Well, I got some things I want to take care of first before I really get done with it. And then I got to tell you, the more I find out about our journalists, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where I could fit in
Fred,
best.
They're going to be there unless you got the money. Now, if you got the money, you can put the ad in the paper, their respective paper.
That's true, too.
But if not that, you can forget about
Bruce,
it. It'll be the same deal.
We got to make sure you get out. There are other people out there of color in Portland, in Oregon, who are interested in running, who are afraid to run because of people like Mark Zusman and other editors
but hey,
and stuff.
In the times of the day, they should file.
I know.
Forget about this business about
don't be afraid.
That's right. You just
don't
run for office.
Be afraid.
That's right.
One of the even though I've lost, I've run 3 times.
Well, you won.
Even though I've lost, I will tell you, I've always become a better person.
Yeah.
I've always contributed. I think more afterwards. You know, when you run to win, but you have to understand that if you don't win, that your fight isn't over with. You get to contribute in other ways, maybe in broader ways than you ever thought.
Well, to tell you whether or not you have the issues for your platform.
If you are a person of color and you care about your community, you care about your family and friends in the community, and you think you have something to contribute, run. Anything you've heard me say here about racism and stuff, don't let that intimidate. Know it's there, and understand there are people who are going to be doing things to make sure that stuff goes away. But run. Don't be afraid. This is your community, and there's a lot of people, both black and white, who have given up so much just so we could even have the notion of doing stuff like
Well, you
that.
know,
Yeah.
Fred, I'll tell
Well
you one
said.
thing about this particular show, this particular issue, with you here sitting there, look like you've given up your platform is sitting there. You're going to be talking about hate and racism. You said you're sort of taking it away from the Oregon Voters Digest. That means
Well,
Teresa's going to have to
well-
probably call you back and call someone else up who is going to be running for your seat.
Hate, racism, definitely. I'm always going to be going after things like that. I
You
hate,
made that
I hate,
statement. You made
I
that
hate
statement.
discrimination.
And while
But I'm also going to be talking about housing
Okay,
and,
well, we
and
only have
business development.
about 2 minutes or so, and I want to take you back to the fact that you can in fact Google, if you will. This is a live stream right now on YouTube, so please check it out. But the article is a very interesting article, but there were some things that I would like to have asked more about within that article. But I would encourage you to read that. Hopefully, we can get that on the screen
Yeah, it's
while
at,
we still.
it's
while
at
we still-
fredstewart.com.
Okay, but I'm gonna see if I can put that on the screen
Okay.
while we're at it. And then the times, the repeat time on this piece, with as far as Comcast is concerned, you can throw that on there. I'd really appreciate that. We got about a minute or so.
Yeah.
Put the times.
Tuesday
there
and
there you go.
Friday.
We got him
Yeah.
right there. There we go. And that's Fred Stewart. He was Stewart Group, and we got Teresa Rayford.
And my
Jesus,
website is
we all look
fredstewart.com.
alike.
It's just simple.
I told you that.
Fredstewart.com.
That's the simulation.
You can go and read the article, and feel free to comment or post, and feel free to definitely on sharing it on social media. I really want a conversation about racism and journalism, especially as we're going into this next election cycle. I think it's going to help us all have better politics and help us all get better people
Well, you
running for office.
You're
Yeah.
really acting like a candidate. You better just go on and announce the fact you're going to run. Because you're sort of trying to take over the show. I mean, this is the Oregon Voters Day. This is for candidates. Are you planning on running, Fred?
I'm going to be thinking about it and talking about it.
I
with
didn't say thinking. Are you thinking about? Are you going to be running?
I'm very seriously looking at running.
You're not seriously looking at it.
I'm seriously
There you
looking
go.
at it.
He's a
I'm
candidate.
very seriously
Which
looking-
seat are you thinking about? Real quick, like
City council.
city council. We ain't in a particular
There's only
seat?
two jobs I want.
Which one you want?
What I'm doing, which is selling real estate.
Which one are you
and the
going to
other
be
one
running?
is
Which seat were you going to be
haven't
running?
decided yet. Which one do you think I should run for?
I don't respect Nick. Nick really needs to give it up. In all due respect, the guy's having some real medical problems. He should give it up and just go and take care of family and take it easy and come out here and have a cup of coffee with Bruce, and we can sit down there and commentary about a lot of the issues that he was very much involved with and things of that nature. So I think it's a good seat. It'll be a good seat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. I guess we got Joanne Bowman that's going to be running against
Dave Salzman.
Dave Salzman. I think that's a good piece aspect of it. And I had rumors about the fact that was it McGee? I think was thinking about possibly. He has. That's it. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Okay. Good. Thanks very much. Great job. Thanks
Yeah.
very much, Steve.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Hey, folks, have a good one. Talk to you next time around. We're going to have another good show coming up.